Very good morning to you. How are you doing? Welcome to Motivation Monday right here on Jam 316 on both Family TV and Family Radio 316. My name is James Okumu. Thank you for taking the time to hook up with me today. Leadership is what's on the table today. We want to talk about leadership and true leadership for that matter. You know, it is John Maxwell who says that everything rises and falls on leadership. And I've had this quote before: we get the leaders we deserve. I really don't know what that means, but I've had it quite a lot. And so today we want to look at the whole issue of leadership. You know, what makes a true leader? What are the qualities of a true leader? It seems like sometimes I keep wondering, is it that we have a leadership crisis, especially in Africa, or is it that as people of Africa, people of Kenya, we've become so gullible? When people show us who they really are, we don't believe them. We believe what they say vis-a-vis what they do, because sometimes you wonder, what kind of leaders do we have? I'm not just talking politically, I'm talking in very many spheres of life, even on the home front. You know, as men, we say we are the leaders of the home, but sometimes you look at some of the things that are happening in our homes and you wonder, what kind of leaders do we have in our families today? Because life makes up its mind at home, and home is the building block of the society. And so if you have a rotten society, it goes back down to the family. It means you have rotten families, because society is made up of families. And so we're looking at leadership from quite a number of angles today, and I want to rope you in to be part of this conversation. I have an amazing guest. I'll be introducing him to you in the next short while as we dig into this. If you have a question, if you have a thought, please feel free to send it in via text. SMS is on 20316, WhatsApp on 0786 316 316. Motivation Monday today. It's all about leadership. I'm excited about the conversation we're about to delve into, and as always, inviting you to be a part of it. If you have a question, if you have a thought, feel free to send it in via SMS on 20316, WhatsApp 0786 316 316. This morning, we are so blessed to hang out with Dr. Tim Kiruhi. Dr. Tim Kiruhi is a leadership and ethics coach, and he is also the Vice Chancellor, International Leadership University. Daktari, it's good to have you on board. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
I think I'll begin by asking the question, do we have a leadership crisis?
Oh, I think that's an understatement, James. I think it's of very high proportions. Mm-hmm. And I think part of it emanates from maybe our understanding of leadership.
Yes.
If you ask the average Kenyan, maybe the biggest image we have, and I do this with utmost respect to the people in this space, mm-hmm. is our politicians.
Yes.
We tend to take our cue of what a good leader is. And unfortunately, sometimes even now, constituencies like the church mm-hmm. or family mm-hmm. can take the cue from that model that we have, the role model.
Yes.
But really, that is not really much about leadership. I mean, the political organization is actually a whole different science compared mm-hmm. to leadership. My area of discipline happens to be organizational leadership.
Yes.
And so, in a sense, when you weigh this against what leadership should be, it is not, Of course, there are many ways to define leadership, mm-hmm. Even from a professional point of view. But if you allow me, I'll just share, what this looks like
yes.
from a professional point of view.
Mm-hmm.
That leadership has a lot to do with, inspiring willing followers to accomplish a cause that's beneficial or significant.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our political class is very good at the inspiration part and the motivation.
Yes.
People are not always willing. I think right now we are having a challenge right now. Are we willing to go in a certain direction as a country or not?
Mm-hmm.
And so on. And then it's, of course, a question of something that is long-term, something that goes to the roots of the organization, so to speak. And the organization here can be an individual, a family, can be a church, can be a nation, can be the world. And so true leaders work towards what is beneficial or significant for the constituency that they lead.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much about themselves, which unfortunately that's the other thing that you find. A lot of what is called leadership is a lot of ego.
Yeah.
And very little to do with what is beneficial, what will be long lasting. If one is say a member of parliament or an MCA, looking at, I have these 5 years to benefit the people who put mm-hmm. me in office. What are their real needs? How can I empower them truly so that they are better off at the end of the 5 years?
Yes.
But you see, unfortunately, both the led and the leader sometimes don't seem to understand even what we are about. So we want handouts, cheap handouts, and so on. But 5 years later, we are left in exactly the same space where we were, or the same place. We have not moved forward.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah,
I'm just wondering, because you study leadership. I like that answer. I'm just wondering, where did this ideology of leadership come from? Where the leader is the one that we have to bow down to. I get so angry when I'm on the road. And you have a leader driving on the wrong side of the road, flashing their lights. You would think it's an emergency, but it's not an emergency. Or even those who are meant to be law enforcers, they break the law. And I wonder, where did we get this notion that a leader is one who is up there and we have to bow down to them?
I guess there are various images of that, and I think with the distortions that come in society, whether it can be at the family level, whether again it's culturally, and also maybe just the fallen nature of human beings. That when you're in a place of privilege, you want to usurp all the power, usurp everything. And of course, weaken others. I think we had a political leader in this country some years ago who used to say, it's easier to rule over poor people.
Yes.
Because they don't have power over you. They don't have a right to ask anything, and so on. So I think it's just part of the fallen nature of human beings. And you see it even right from history, even biblical history. You find that there are people who would come in and just really usurp everything. And rather than now serving the people that put them in office, they're always very good, by the way, look at when they are approaching campaigns. Yeah. They are very humble. They will come and kneel to you. But as soon as they're in the place of privilege, you can't reach them. You can't connect again. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
It is said that people usually get the leaders they deserve. I've always wondered, is that statement really true? Or is it just a fancy statement that somebody coined up?
There's some element of truth.
Okay.
I mean, much as I said earlier, that we tend to look at the political class. When you ask the average Kenyan, why are we in the mess we are in today? Most of us would also refer to the same group and say, politicians or political leadership. So for that matter, if we give them the title leadership. And at the same time, we think, okay, we are 47 million Kenyans. Are we saying that we are 47 million good Kenyans who are responsible, who want to do the right thing?
Yes.
But as a few, there are actually not more than 5,000 elected leaders in this country. So are we saying that all the mess we are in is because of the 5,000 versus 47 million? Are we so weak? We bullied by just 5,000? I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think in many ways, those leaders unfortunately represent the aspirations of most of us who are Kenyans. So in a sense, yes, they are the image of what most of us would do if we had the same position.
Yes.
Let me give a quick example. Think about there are times that you maybe are in town, you're trying to get a parking lot and so on. And so the person who has the authority over that parking lot is a security officer or a watchman.
Yeah.
And many times he'll let you know that I'm in control here. If you do something nice to me, I can take care of you. So you can imagine if that same person had also a billion shillings at his disposal to utilize, how would he do it? Would it be any different? So yes, in many ways, and so we have to look inward. I think before we can blame, we have to look inward and begin to ask, what do we want? But I think part of it is we have no clarity about where we want to go long term, and therefore any road takes us there, any person takes us there.
Okay.
If we knew exactly where we wanted to go, I think we'll be a bit more careful with who we put in political office or in any other roles of leadership, even in the other smaller organizations, our chamas, our churches, whatever, and so on.
Okay. I'm just wondering, where does leadership begin? Does it begin with a position? Because we are so fixated with positions. I mean, we love titles. Oh, my goodness. For me, being a pastor, sometimes I interact with people, and if you don't call them bishop, doctor, so-and-so, they really get offended. So does it begin with a position, or where does leadership begin?
I think that's when we are insecure, we revert to the position.
Okay.
But the position is actually, even from the scientific study of leadership, it is the weakest form of authority.
Wow.
And it is. Because how many times can you keep reminding people that, I'm the boss around here? Anytime you do that, it's because you're insecure.
Yes.
And because it's obvious to the people who are with you that you are the boss. There will be other bases that you can use that are better. Your character, your example, The fact that you are caring and empowering and so on. All those are other bases you can use to lead people. And the most successful leaders, actually, in fact, maybe this is a work of somebody called Jim Collins. He talked about the fact one of the attributes of all good leaders was their humility.
Wow.
So it's the exact opposite.
Yes.
So that's why I'm saying that it's a very weak base when you have to kind of remind people who you are around here and so on. I think you are losing it. And so on. In fact, they say you should never really use that more than once or twice, in your lifetime as a leader.
Wow.
That maybe is a crisis.
Yes.
So I agree with you that yes, when people are insecure, they tend to revert to that positions, those images of power and so on. But that's not really effective leadership.
Yes.
I think even when you think about the people who have been effective in our nation, whether on the political scene, or even maybe, let's say, about on the church scene, since I believe a lot of your listeners maybe are also people who are affiliated to one church or another.
Yeah.
It is people who do not have such a big ego. Think of people like whether it's Alexander Muge some years ago or others who served in other eras. They didn't think too much about themselves. They focus on the needs of the people. And so we remember them today on the basis of what they did for others. I think I can take some liberties here with someone like President Kibaki. He didn't really care too much what people thought about him. People would say all kinds of things during his first 5-year term.
Yeah.
He never responded to those things. We all had kind of our own assumptions of what was happening.
Yes.
At the end of the 10 years, we all said, no, he was a great leader because of what he did. But it's because he didn't focus on himself. He focused on Team Kenya. He focused on the needs of the nation. That's why I talked about leadership has to do with taking people where they need to go.
Yeah.
It's clear in your mind as a leader, and then you do whatever it takes to take the people there with you.
Okay. Maybe now you can break down to us what are some of the things that actually make somebody a true leader or a good leader?
Oh, very good. Thank you. I think, first of all, is the character of the person. Leadership is about trust, because you are moving people to a place they have not been before. And it needs, that's why, we all think about Martin Luther King Jr., about they said, have a vision, you have a dream. And so he could see something 40 years down the line that the average American, maybe to use that context, could not even think about. In terms of the fact that people, whether regardless of race, would be able to share and sit at the same table. It was unimaginable at the time, but he could see it as a possibility. And he began to move people towards that. Of course, the non-violence movement and all of that. The same thing. So the first thing is that the leader needs to have the character to be believable, because the leader has a vision. So maybe I should have prefaced that to say, of course, the leader, of course, in the first place needs to have a clear vision.
Yeah.
A good leader. So you know where you want to go. So for myself, as an honors on me as the Vice Chancellor at International Leadership University, it must be clear in my mind. I need to have an image. Together with, of course, the rest of the team, we work together at clarifying that vision. So in fact, I've just been in office for about a year. And one of the first things that we did was to revisit our strategic plan and clarify our vision, our mission, our values, so that it's very, very clear where we are going. And my honors, the honors on me now is to take the team there with me, is to take the people with me. But the second thing, in addition to vision, then is character. Character to do with that I can be believed, of course. Yeah. Because you could be saying all kinds of things, but if people don't know that you're a person of character, they will not. And that's why we fail, especially at the family level. Things like maybe, people who lie easily and so on, so that their word is not their bond. Then people say, wachana na yeye, learn to use Kiswahili, you know the person. Just forget about what they are saying. It means nothing. But if you are a person of character, your word is believable. Okay. We can go on then to talk about
back to the character issue, because it seems like today wealth overrides character. In terms of, when people are running for positions, if somebody has got the money but they have got a questionable character, and you have another candidate that has got the character but they don't have many resources, we tend to run towards and support that person who has resources. We forget about their character. I don't know what you think about that.
Very, very true. Good observation. And unfortunately, that is true. I've had that around many elections. When people would have two candidates, they know that this is the better person, by their character, their vision, but the other one has got the goodies. And unfortunately, we'll fall for the goodies. I think part of it is maybe poverty that is a bit dehumanizing, so that people lose their sense of esteem, people lose their sense of worth. So they don't care about tomorrow. They live for the day. And therefore, if you're giving goodies for the day, and that's maybe just about what somebody has, do not worry too much about the person who will take them to the future, because for them, the future does not almost exist. It is today. We live for the day and so on. I think that's one of the challenges that we have, and therefore that's how come we end up putting in office, because you're the ones who do that, people who don't deserve to be in those offices. And of course, unfortunately, a few months later, we begin crying and saying they're not doing what we expect them to do. It was obvious they were not going to have the character. I mean, we have a number of people, whether governors or whatever, we all knew that they didn't have the character and what it takes. But now whether they're in office, we begin complaining, how come they're not doing what they should do?
Yes.
They didn't have it in them. Yes.
Wow. And you know, that always makes me wonder, is the problem the leadership or is the problem the people?
I actually, that there's a quote actually that to basically talk about the challenges of leadership or simply the challenges of the leaders is to oversimplify a very complex problem, because there's that symbiotic relationship between the leaders and the led. And and the truth, I mean, even like a country like Kenya, we have such a beautiful law in terms of, the recall clause. We have never exercised it in any of the counties in the 10 years or so we've had a new constitution.
Wow.
The fact that we are allowed to recall a political leader who does not serve their purposes.
Yes.
But again, you can be sure most people will just be bribed easily and drop that and so on. So I think it assumes a certain level of dignity and worth on the part of the led.
Okay.
And unfortunately, because of the poverty levels that we've had and so on, people are very disempowered. So then their right to exercise their true, whether democracy or whatever else, is really lowered.
Okay.
And so we are not able to really see a good dynamic between the leader and the led.
Wow.
A good leader, of course, and when you look at nations like Singapore or others who are the same level with us at independence, their leaders decided to empower the people, to do what is good for the people. In fact, they would actually even, I'm told when they first did their high-rise buildings, the people did not understand even what those high-rise buildings were. They would come with their goats and sheep trying to go to the 10th floor or the 50th floor of the skyscrapers. So it took time for them to be taught that actually when you choose to come and live here, you leave your village life behind. You cannot do it both ways and so on.
Yeah.
You can see that the leaders were way ahead of the people. They cared for the people. They did what was good for the people, even though the people were not quite ready for it at the time. So I think it's something that we need to work on, and that's why you need leaders who have character, leaders who care, leaders who are considerate about those that they work with, and not just think about themselves.
Wow. Yeah. This morning we are talking about true leadership on the Jam 316 Motivation Monday. If you have any questions for us, 20316 is the SMS line. WhatsApp number is 0786 316 316. We are hosting Dr. Tim Kiruhi, who is leadership and ethics coach and also Vice Chancellor, International Leadership University. And so as we continue with our conversation, you've told us two things when we're talking about characteristics of a good leader, of a true leader. You've talked about vision and you've talked about character, and I think those are important. What is another thing we need to look out for?
Well, thank you, James. The other area that is important, of course, is some good chemistry with those that are led. In my definition of leadership, I talk about inspiring, willing followers.
Yes.
And that's a tough one. But that's really what makes the difference between a good leader and an average leader, maybe, or an excellent leader.
Yeah.
Because the truth is that not everybody is willing to follow initially. They either don't know you. Remember, I talked about leadership is about trust. It's a trust relationship. They also maybe they even wanted to compete for the same position sometimes. Two of you are candidates for the promotion and one of you has to get it, the other one will not. How will the other person give you their support? And yet they wanted to go for the same position.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's important is then, of course, is to open up the space, have an honest conversation to share that, both you and I could have been easily, either one of us would have been the candidate to be in this position. It happens to be me today. But I recognize that you have some gifts and abilities to bring to this organization.
Yeah.
And I would like you to not to hold back, but to bring that, whatever it is that you can bring to help us be a better organization. And then maybe even clarify some of the vision they had as well, because maybe they had some ideas of where they wanted to go. So I'm talking about creating an environment for good chemistry. But you see, it again comes from character, because they have to believe that you are being honest, even when you say that. And of course, then the place of vision, they can always enhance the vision that you had. You can, not everything would have to come from one leader. Good leaders are those, of course, who imbibe and take vision and ideas, perspectives from other people, and so on. So good chemistry, I think that you create an environment where there's some level of freedom, because especially in a time like now, when we have a very fast-changing environment, think about the challenge of corona that we've had.
Yes.
We are all doing things very differently from what we did before. And it is not, who are the people, even like, say, for example, let me use the example of the church. For many churches, the young people who do social media were kind of auxiliary. In fact, even in some circles, we even kind of look down on those who are doing their TV programs and so on, saying, is this real church? Every one of us is doing that, So the place of being able to listen to ideas, especially those who are able to see ahead, maybe, again, they might not even be able to explain clearly why they feel certain things, but just listen to that out to them. So creating that environment where people can, ideas can be nurtured, everybody can contribute. And again, that's why I talked about when a leader is overbearing, which is what, unfortunately, that's the image most of us have, is a very unhealthy situation. It's a very weak situation, because then, of course, only the ideas carry. And then, of course, there are all the other people who are more resourceful around them, who are often professionals in their area, skilled in certain areas. They just watch the organization tottering away rather than being able to bring their best. So it behoves a leader to. Now, that's why we talked about, Jim Collins talked about humility as an important quality of leadership. Because then, they are able to then, allow others to lead. In fact, there's a whole concept, as somebody called Max Dupree talked about, the idea that leadership is like musical chairs, and in a sense, there should be a sense of rotation, so that when you're in a crisis, and the person who knows maybe how to handle crisis best, they should actually step back and allow them to be able to lead at that point. We just had an academic exercise last Friday at our university, and it was important to allow the experts in that field, because I'm not no expert in everything, to be able to take the lead on certain things, because if we don't allow that, I will not be able to get the benefit of what they can bring. It's important that we all play that. So chemistry is a big part. The environment. Another way you can put it is the culture of the organization.
Yes.
Creating the right culture. Yeah.
And who sets the culture?
The general agreement is that it's the leader's biggest responsibility. In fact, they say once you have set the right culture, you can actually even now pull back, because then everybody is able to go on. You have allowed them the freedom, you have empowered them. They know the limits, they know the boundaries, they know the values of the organization. You can actually have almost, in a sense, pull back, and then allow everybody to now do the creative stuff. Because they also know, of course, the boundaries. So you, of course, have to specify the boundaries. They cannot be boundless and so on. But that's the leader's responsibility. And there's quite a bit of research, again, that supports that the leader's primary responsibility is to set the right culture. Again, allow me to use the example of our university, because we just worked on a strategic plan. And we actually agree that our biggest priority right now for the next few years, 2 years, maybe 2-3 years, is to actually get our culture right. Get out the things that don't represent the future that we want, and bring in the things that we don't have today, but that they are part of that future that we want to become. Once we have that right, other things are secondary. Resources, so many times we tend to think that why organizations struggle is because of resources. No, a good vision, a good culture attracts good resources.
Very true.
So getting it right on the terms of the culture and the chemistry between the leader and the led, but especially the whole culture of the organization, the boundaries around it, the values that are exhibited, those are critical.
Okay. I've always had this statement, Dr. that a good leader is one who knows the way, shows the way, and goes the way. Talk to us a bit about that one.
Those are very good statements as well. I mean, and it does summarize a lot of the things. So, knows the way, that's vision. Goes the way, that has a lot to do with character and modeling. Because you're not telling people to go where they need to go, but you're not going there. That's the challenge with many people. If I issued a memo at the International Leadership University that everybody must come on time, But then everybody knows I never do. I mean, I'm not believable. I'm not going the way. I'm not I'm not a good example. And before long, people will stop taking me seriously because they just say he just talks, but doesn't demonstrate that. But even without writing that memo, if I show up at the office every day on time, before long you find everybody follows suit because they know what it is. I was at a social function yesterday, and we had a bishop. In this, it was a social function. It was at somebody's home, and most of the people when I go there, I was a bit concerned because it's a social event. Of course, we have the coronavirus spike, and many people are wearing their masks either loosely, not wearing them at all, and so on. The moment the bishop finished eating and he put on his mask, everybody put on their mask.
Wow.
That's what showing the way is all about, is knowing the way, showing the way, and then going the way, of course, has to do with the longer term and sustaining that for the long haul. Because, again, leadership, most situations are not just overnight. It will need to be sustained. And so you set the foundation. Maybe it may not even happen. Everything may not be realized during your time, but you are careful to make sure that you set that right foundation.
Okay. There's a question coming in here. Somebody is asking on the whole issue of leaders. Are leaders born or are leaders made? And is everybody a leader of sorts?
All right. It's an age-old question. It's been there. Researchers have been around that and so on. And it is both. Maybe first of all, to simplify. There is a sense in which you must admit there are people who are just gifted. They maybe have never even gone to a leadership class, but they just get into an environment. Maybe you are going to do a project, and they just somehow seem to come up with a way to inspire other people, to clarify issues, to break it down, and to help move other people. So there's a sense of gifting in leadership, which is now the born part. However, that one usually is a constant. There's not much you can do about that because you come with it. God gives it to you, so to speak, as a spiritual gift. But usually the quotient that is bigger is the part whereby you can be trained. And that's why institutions like ours exist at the International Leadership University, is because we believe that leadership can also be taught. You can learn skills of leadership. Both not only skills of leadership, you can also, of course, grow in your character. Remember, we kept talking about the importance of character. In fact, our own ethos, our slogan, is developing leaders of integrity. So that has to do with character, because we recognize that is so central to becoming an effective leader. So leadership can also be taught, fortunately. You can learn many things. And today, this is to encourage our listener and others, you don't have an excuse that you cannot even go to a university like ours. Although the world would like to welcome you, because there's so much stuff on the internet that you can begin just in terms of self-coaching, self-teaching. So you can go in there. There's material by Maxwell, by others that will be helpful at that level. Of course, we'll still need some people who are now professionally trained. That's why institutions like ours exist, and coaching, of course, because that, especially for adults, you don't change very much just by listening. So there's a place of coaching and mentorship to be helped by somebody else to really internalize those things and make them your own. And that's why, like at ILU, International Leadership University, we also have a professional training center. We call it the Leadership Center, where we actually train people on short courses, certain skills that they would like to get in, but also we not only train them, we also coach them, we mentor them so that we can make sure they internalize those things to become a part of their lives.
Okay. Talk to us a bit about the
leadership is both born and taught.
Okay. I'm just wondering, the whole concept of being secure as a leader, because I find that when you have a leader who's not secure, and I see that a lot in this nation, I see that a lot sometimes even in church, where the leader is not secure and the people that you're leading end up suffering because you're working so hard to try and secure your position because you have all these insecurities. You're always trying to prove yourself. You don't have room for other people. The way you were saying earlier that you have to be willing to allow other people to also come in and shine if it's not your area of competence. You have leaders who, they know everything because if somebody else comes, they can take over. I mean, I keep wondering, what can you share with us concerning that, and how do you develop a place of security as a leader to know that I am secure in my leadership?
Very, very important. Many people, or for many of us, again, getting into places of privilege or responsibility, we make that the end goal. And unfortunately, that should not be. It's a means to something bigger than ourselves. Allow me to again use the example of a university where we have said now, although we want to have the right culture, we want to grow our capacity because we are a small university that wants to grow. We will hopefully become a university of choice, but finally, we want to be a place where we can bring change. If you don't define why you are in leadership, what is the end goal? Then this becomes everything. And so you guard it jealously because this is it.
Yes.
But I need to be very clear that my work at the International Leadership University is to raise leaders who go on to bring change in society. If that vision is not very clear, the end goal, then I get caught up in the dynamics of the internal here.
Yeah.
But that's not it. This is a means of doing something bigger than myself, bigger than even our institution. The true test of whether we are successful is what will happen with our graduates when they go into society. Are they really change makers? Are they bringing that positive change and so on? And, if that is what I exist for, I will also keep evaluating. Am I the best person at this point in time to take us where we need to go? And there are times that I've, in some of my previous responsibilities where I have known that the time has come for me to move on. And it is, even though I was privileged to be the founder, to maybe be the person who gave the initial foundations to this organization, I know right now God has raised other people. And there's nothing as humbling as that to recognize that there are other people around you who may be the leaders for this season, and you simply need to support them. In a good system, the founder will still be respected.
Yes.
They'll still have their wisdom and they'll be consulted, but maybe they don't need to be running the show. But I think it's part of the challenge we have, and I think, in a very fair manner, for many churches, the founders do a good job at the beginning. But then when they overstay their welcome, so to speak, they begin to actually destroy what they did.
Yes.
And the same thing even for political leadership.
Yes.
Many people, the first 10 years, they're wonderful. After that, they begin. And I think that was a wisdom around which we said, let's talk about 2 terms of 5 years each, because your ideas run out at some point. Your energy diminishes and so on. And you don't want to get also too compromised because there are all kinds of people with, So it takes a very secure leader, like you said, to be able to understand the times. Is this my season? Or has God raised somebody around me? And if you are the one who has raised them, they'll always defer to you. They'll always respect you. But again, because maybe of how we handled people at the beginning, we didn't respect them, we didn't empower them, so we fear. But now if they came to a place of power, now they'll also do what I did to them. So it has to be built into this whole process with a very clear end in goal. In mind that the end goal is not so much about myself, it's to do something bigger than our organization, bigger than our church, bigger than our nation. I think if that is what we are working towards, you can always appreciate that, maybe my season is over, it's time for another to come. And if you treated them well, they will also treat you well.
Very true.
When their time comes.
Very true. Okay, Dr. Shortly we'll talk about the place of servant leadership. I keep hearing a lot about servant leadership as well. But sometimes it's so hard to come across servant leadership because what we have is bossy leadership all over the place. So we'll talk about that shortly. Right. We are talking about true leadership on Motivation Monday today. If you have questions, please send them in via SMS 20316 is the SMS line. WhatsApp 0786 316 316. True leadership is what we are talking about. We are hanging out with Dr. Tim Kiruhi. He is a leadership and ethics coach and also Vice Chancellor, International Leadership University. Thank you for all the SMSs coming through. I have a comment here from Francis in Nakuru. Francis in Nakuru says, "Hi James, George Barna said, great leaders empower and release rather than dictate and confine. Insecurity leads to the latter." That is what Francis in Nakuru is saying. I'm just wondering, Daktari, looking at, before we talk about servant leadership, looking at the happenings in our neighboring country of Uganda, looking at what's happening in the US of A, does this relate to this statement that's been said here? True, great leaders empower and release rather than dictate and confine. Insecurity leads to the latter. What are your thoughts?
I think generally that is true. And although initially it may look like that is helpful, when you kind of, concentrate all the power on one person and so on, of course, like they say, absolute power corrupts. Absolutely.
Yes.
So, because we also have the human nature. Remember, we are fallen human beings.
Oh, very true.
And so, when there are no boundaries, there are no controls, eventually the worst of us will come out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my concern about places where we don't have that. And so, although our country seems to struggle because of the level of freedom compared to the others, we have a lot of space for freedom. Sometimes almost misuse, of course, and needs a lot of guidance, needs boundaries, and a strong value system. Without which, of course, would struggle to also go where we need to go. But I think long term will be the better for it, because then we are allowing, I think, different players to do their bit and so on.
Yes.
Civil society has its contribution to the well-being of a society, the church, and other players, community groups, and so on. So I think it's really important that a good society allows that freedom. Initially, we seem to have lost our way in terms of because of all the voices. But again, I think with good leadership now, you can harness all these voices into one whole if you have a clear vision for where we need to go.
Very true, very true. I think vision is very important.
The U.S. situation, of course, is a very tough one when you think about what is good for the country long term.
Yeah.
And there are people who are, of course, strongly almost split down the middle.
Yeah.
In terms of what is right and what kind of values the leader stood for and things like that. But I think hopefully now the new leader, it does look like it's Joe Biden by all means, that he'll have now the magnanimity to really bring everybody on board.
Yes.
Allow, the Republican Party, and it's because they stand for some good things that we all appreciate, that are maybe consistent with our Christian values. But at the same time, it looks like maybe they may have gotten out of touch with some of the people in terms of the needs of the wider society. And so that I think is a warning call to them, hopefully to get to the place where they are a bit more sensitive to the fact that although they have good values and ideals, not everybody that can access those things like healthcare or other things that, of course, are important to the other Americans here.
Wow. Okay. Let's delve into servant leadership before we run out of time. I hear a lot about servant leadership. Maybe you can tell us what it is like and what it looks like, because we hardly see it.
That is true. The first person to actually exercise and demonstrate servant leadership is actually our Lord Jesus Christ. Even secular scholars agree that that's the first place where you see that. And again, when it practiced well, it's actually a beautiful form of leadership. It's not a weak leadership.
Yeah. Because
the leader then begins to look at the well-being of the people, like I started by saying. In fact, they say that true test of servant leadership is at the end of your tenure as a leader. Are the people healthier? Are they wiser? Are they wealthier? Have you empowered them to be the better self? Or the organization is better for it. When I leave International Leadership University, will it be better off than when I joined? Yeah. Financially, in terms of its public image, in terms of its impact. That is a true test of servant leadership. So it is, you can see it's because I exist to serve the organization. I do recognize that I'm not there for myself. It's a place of privilege for the sake of everyone else to move us towards a better future. So that is the true servant leadership. You can see it's integral. It's really at the heart of moving the organization forward. Unfortunately, as we said earlier, many of us get into that position and it becomes about me. Yeah. It's about my ego and stroking my ego. I completely forget why I got into the position in the first place. And so, using my earlier statement, knowing the way, showing the way, and going the way, the leader and the organization stop going the way. Because then they get concocted in terms of what the real end goal is. Yes. Rather than going to where they need to be, they began, it's about serving the leader and so on. So, yes, we don't have, but fortunately, it is actually an acknowledged leadership style, even in secular circles. So today you see a lot of research on secular servant leadership. I can mention that actually in our own country, there are quite a few people, I happen to know several of them, who are believers, who have actually, even at the level of their PhD research, actually traced servant leadership, even in secular organizations. So we do have some servant leaders. There are not many, as you said, but they are there, who are exercising that kind of leadership. And I think, but it begins with that clarity. Why am I in leadership? What is my end goal? What is my contribution? And so on. And if and it's something that somebody can learn, by the way, again, it's one of the courses we offer at the International Leadership University. There's a whole module on servant leadership. So you can get to know it. It's not initially it sounds like it's a simplistic, weak leadership. Yeah. No. You clarify, like I said, where you want to be at the end, and at the end of your term, and then you begin to put structures, put systems that help you to move everyone with you there.
Okay. Before we finish, one more question. I'm just wondering, what in your opinion do you think it will take for Kenyans to get better leaders in this nation? Because it's not just about the leaders, it's also about the people. So what will it take for us to get leaders who have vision, leaders who have character, leaders who are servant leaders, leaders who are concerned about the people, leaders who are actually taking us somewhere? You know, tumeambiwa mambo ya Canaan mara mingi, but tunaioneaga tu kwa Biblia. When we look outside, we are thinking, oh my goodness, Jehovah, we need your help. What will it take?
Yeah. A good question. I think this is one of the spaces, especially the church can play a role, which is to empower the people, to equip the people to know what they should look out for good leaders. And even like now, this is really the space now in 2020, ahead of 2022. Who are we going to vote into office? Because the voting will happen, and that for sure. But do we know who to vote for? In the last exercise, I can share this example, working with a number of my neighbors. Our Christian fellowship in IS decided that we would actually invest in trying to influence who becomes our next MCA. We thought at least at that level we should have some influence. And so we actually carried out a public exercise where we invited all the candidates. It was very easy. I was surprised how easy it was to invite them because they knew this estate has 600 votes, and for an MCA that matters. And we basically got them to come. We had prepared some certain questions based on the values that we wanted to look for in the next leader. And actually, I could tell at the end of that exercise who I wanted to vote for. It was very clear to me because there was a basis and so on, but also an engagement. Because I think that the other mistake we make is this idea of voting 6-piece, to pick a suit. It's a lazy way of because you are thinking on the party's well-being. And the party can have thieves there, it can have all kinds of characters who are bought their way, get into power. So when you just vote for a party, I don't think you're exercising your Christian responsibility, especially as a Christian. Have you really prayed about these people? Are these the people who meet God's standards and so on? So the responsibility is on us as the led. And I think that's where we need to put in a bit more effort. I don't think the politicians are going to change a lot. I think it is the electorate that needs to change so that you can get different kinds of political leaders who are going to help us as a country. And I think this is where the space we should be playing. And so we want to work together at the International Leadership University. We actually have an institute that's going to be helping churches and other groups to really be able to exercise community leadership. Because you also can't just go for the presidency. You have to start at the lowest level, at the village. Are you having an influence there? And then you can be able to now scale it up to the level that you want to go at. So to begin to engage so that we are relevant. I think that's another thing that's also important for leaders, maybe to add to the other C's that I had given you, contextual relevance. We need to be relevant where we are. Are we able to be relied upon? The kind of community come to us because they see us as a place of solutions. And we are able to solve the problems of the community. Very important, I think.
Wow, Dr. Thank you for that candid conversation. We truly appreciate. We've been able to pick some nuggets that will help us. Unfortunately, I'm out of time for today, but we will have this conversation soon again because we need to talk about these things more often than we are, because we need our people equipped to know how to become good leaders themselves and also how to identify a good leader.
Very important. And I can just say that at the International Leadership University, we are happy to serve the church, other organizations, and anything partnership we can do to make this bigger and better, to impact more people. It's an exciting privilege for us to be able to do that.
Asante sana.
Thank you very much.
I hope you've been able to learn something about what makes a good leader. Unfortunately, our time is up for today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Thank you for the questions, the comments you had sent in today. Truly appreciate it.
For this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs, from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.